Welcome back. Now we're going to begin to look at the early experiences that you had that led you to the beliefs and feelings that you have about yourself. Okay, so we're going to look at our childhood years. Now we established in the early on in the essentials of communications of this powerful need that God has put within all of us for love. It's the most powerful force in the universe, and it's what drives all behavior. So the opposite of being loved is what? Being unloved or being rejected. So we've got love on one side, we've got rejection on the other. Now I want to define rejection. Okay? Rejection is the absence of meaningful love. And we're not trying to imply in any way here that mom and dad didn't love you. And our intent here is not to point fingers and throw rocks at mom and dad. Our intent here is to take an open and honest look at your experiences, because we all have experienced it. And there are no perfect moms and dads. They may have perfect hearts, but they have a tendency to share things that have a tendency for us to feel rejected out of those. And we also know that only 7% of what we communicate is done verbally. Wow. 93% is done on a non-verbal level. Okay? So the things that we're going to look at first, we're going to look at the obvious or known types of rejection. And again, we're not going to spend a lot of time on it because these are very self-explanatory. The first one that's obvious or known is, I just wish you had never been born. I mean, that's just an open verbal abuse that's very, very destructive. Secondly, we have physical abuse. And unfortunately, parents have a tendency to punish out of anger, and we'll deal with that some a little bit later. This last week on the news, it was so sad. I saw where they had arrested a man who had killed his 1-year-old son, and there was evidence that he had been abused before. It was so sad. Then we have sexual abuse, and I don't know of anything that's more damaging, especially to a young lady, a young girl, than being sexually abused. It's horrific, the damage that it does, and for boys too. Another one is being locked out of the house. That's just an obvious way that we reject. Another one is given up for adoption. The child just feels like they weren't loved, and they weren't wanted, and so that brings on a lot of damage. A child that's abandoned. Sometimes, we hear of a dad that just packed up and left his wife and kids, or a mother will sometimes, pack up and leave and run off, and that's a major rejection for a child. So that's some of the obvious types of rejection. But what we want to focus more on today is the covert or the unknown, the unintentional rejection that we have. And we're going to start with a broken home. See, children many times feel like that a broken home is their fault. And I'm going to tell you this more than once, but children are the best recorders of events, but they are the worst interpreters. And we're going to mention that 2 or 3 times here. Again, they feel like that it's their fault even though it's not. Another one that you've probably never thought of is premature death of a parent. Children aren't many adults. They cannot process things like we adults can. And again, best recorders, worst interpreters. Another one is the wrong sex. Dad will, it'll be made known that, Dad wanted a boy, but now a girl came along. Now we love her to pieces and wouldn't take nothing for her, but Dad wanted a boy. That's very rejecting. Here's one that a lot of us are guilty of, and that's comparing children. Well, your sister got good grades, or your brother was smart, and parents do that, and also teachers do that, and even grandparents and so forth. So we've got to be careful with that. Another one is parents working a lot or gone a lot. And it doesn't matter the reason that you're gone. All the kid knows is you're not there. And we have a saying that kids spell love T-I-M-E. I-M-E. You spend time with me, and that's what shows me that you love me. And all the counseling that I've done with young people, and I don't claim to be a kid counselor. I don't think kids need counseling. I think parents do. But in every situation when I was counseling with them, they always wanted more time with mom and dad. And that's a major issue. And another one is that parents can't show emotion. And a lot of times, some families are just not emotional and don't show emotion through hugs and kisses, and I think that's learned. Now sometimes people that didn't get it will go overboard the other way, but that's we need to show our children emotion. Another one is overprotection. See, this does not allow a child to grow up. It does not allow them to be a person. And when you overprotect them and not allow them to experience things and do things that the other kids are doing, they feel like you don't have any confidence in them. You feel like you're telling them you can't do that. And so that can be very rejecting. Another one is a change of life child. A child that comes late. And I never will forget this. It's been 20 years ago, and my wife and I were, some people moved in across the street, and they were middle 50s, and they had it was about a 10-year-old son. And we were sitting out in their front yard one afternoon, and the young man was playing, the child was playing around us. And his mom began to say something, and I just focused in on the young man. But she said, he wasn't planned. We love him to death, wouldn't take $1 million for him. But his total countenance changed when he heard that, because that was so rejecting to him. And I know the parents didn't mean anything by it, but it was so deflating to him and demeaning to him. Again, his whole countenance just changed. Really, really sad. I've never forgotten him. Here's one that you probably haven't thought about, and that's where a kid has to be hospitalized at an early age. Now, again, they're the best recorders, worst interpreters. What's mom and dad motive here? Well, their child is sick. The doctor says we need to put them in the hospital. They love their child. But the child, again, cannot process that. And they sense that. All they know is they're not at home in their bed, snuggled with their teddy bear. They're being given shots and not where they want to be. So that can be a rejecting experience. And here's a big one, especially today I see so much of. Too little discipline. Kids need structure. They find safety in structure. And what you will see is when there's too little discipline, first off, they see other kids being disciplined, and that they take it as mom and dad don't care. And sometimes that may be the case, but a lot of times it's not. But they need that structure. They need clear boundaries. And they need to know that if I cross this boundary, there's something, there's somebody there to keep me in check. And what you'll notice is you've seen kids that get worse and worse and worse and worse. So what they're doing is they're saying, would somebody please take charge? Would somebody please get a handle on me? Because I'm out of control. And that's why they continue to act out more and more. So they need clear boundaries. Another one is conditional love. And boy, we do this so subtle. Be a good little boy and take out the trash for mom. See how that is? In other words, if you do something, you're going to be a good little boy. Or be a good little girl and make up your bed. And so this is conditional love. As long as you're performing, long as you're doing what I ask you to do, then you're accepted. And then we have another one. It's kind of looks-based acceptance. We make over the cute little kids a lot more than we do the kids that's not so cute. And so we've got to be careful with that. So we're gonna stop this session here. I want you to remember, rejection is the absence of meaningful love. Does not mean that mom and dad didn't love you, but it wasn't communicated to you in the way it should, in the way that you needed it. And You look back over these, think back over these, and try to identify those areas that might have affected you. Till next time, God bless.